The day before I went abroad, my childhood sweetheart warned me with red-rimmed eyes that I was not allowed to fall in love. I was not allowed to skip class. I was not allowed to get into fights. Then she shoved a note into my hand and told me to open it whenever I missed her. It read, "We'll get married when you come back." But after I went abroad for further studies, I became bound to a system. I learned that after I went abroad, my fiance had found a stand-in who looked very much like me. According to the plot, by the time I returned home, the heroine would already have fallen in love with the stand-in. Even my friends would all take his side and condemn me. I would instead be the one who should never have come back. So I made a decision. I would not return home for the time being. I began befriending renowned masters and marketing my work. I also kept building relationships with several respected veterans without making it obvious. I got them to willingly promote my work and offer me guidance. In less than 3 months, I had packaged myself as a rising new star. I even received invitations from renowned masters and wealthy patrons, and my projected worth instantly multiplied several times over. When Wanxing saw the media reports about me, she raised an eyebrow and walked into Siyao's office. Wanxing handed her the tablet. On it was a news report about my brilliant success abroad. Didn't Shiye say he was coming back? How did he end up building a career abroad instead? Did he discover what happened between you and Yichen and decide not to come back? Looking at my photo and hearing Yichen's name, Siyao felt guilty for a moment and grew extremely uncomfortable. She turned the tablet face down. Impossible. Unless you guys sold me out. Wanxing rolled her eyes at her. Sold you out? You pulled this kind of disgraceful stunt, and we all helped you keep it hidden. Yet you accuse us of selling you out. Have you forgotten that Shiye is my friend too? Siyao furrowed her brows and opened her phone. Over the past few months, I don't think I've contacted her much. It wasn't like this before. I used to complain to her about things over there. Every now and then, I'd video call her. But lately I haven't. What exactly is going on between you and Yichen? If Shiye finds out about this, he probably won't come back. When Siyao heard that, she couldn't help but panic. Of course she wanted me to come back. Thinking of this, she hurriedly sent me a message, asking when I would return. She forgot that it was still the middle of the night where I was. Seeing Siyao like this, Wanxing grew somewhat angry. You better end things with Yichen before Shiye comes back. Otherwise, how will you explain yourself? I know what I'm doing. You know what you're doing. When the two of them meet, which one do you think you'll find disgusting? Wanxing rolled her eyes at her. If this gets discovered, I'd like to see how you explain yourself. Wanxing, Siyao and I were all university classmates. The three of us met around the same time. Wanxing had also witnessed the love between us, so she was essentially a mutual friend of ours. After graduation, Wanxing and Siyao started a company together and made a respectable success of it. Naturally, their bond as sisters was very strong, but ever since I went abroad, Wanxing felt that Siyao had become very strange, especially after she started keeping a male college student. Wanxing found it particularly incomprehensible. Siyao had even brought him before her, she felt it was unfair to me and pitied him. Yichen, my career over there was well established, and I have finished building up my credentials. So, in an interview, I told everyone that I was coming home. As soon as Wanxing saw the news, she took the initiative to go find Yichen. What brings you here? Yichen was working at a coffee shop. His mother had fallen ill and been hospitalized and needed a great deal of money. Although Siyao had given him money, Yichen didn't want to owe Siyao, so he kept taking all kinds of part-time jobs, hoping to pay her back in full. Wanxing ordered a cup of coffee. There weren't many people around at this hour, so she began talking to Yichen. Leave Siyao. Yichen froze. He lowered his head, his eyes growing slightly red. I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I have no choice. I need the money. Wanxing hurriedly said, I can help you. I can give you money. If that makes you uncomfortable, just treat it as a loan. You can pay me back later. I promise your mother can continue receiving proper treatment. Yichen clutched at his apron. It's not the same. Wanxing, I know you're a good person, but I can't take your money. Wanxing grew anxious. She couldn't understand why Yichen was refusing her. But you can take Siyao's money. Yichen raised his head and glared at Wanxing with an expression of humiliation. Wanxing sighed. That's not what I meant. But you should understand. Siyao has a boyfriend. They love each other very much. What are you doing by inserting yourself between them? Yichen's face turned deathly pale. I know I'm in the wrong, but I have no choice. I can't leave her. I told you. I can help you. Yichen, I can help you. Whatever Siyao has done for you, I can do for you too. But you don't have to be kept by anyone. Wouldn't that be better? Yichen lowered his head and gripped his apron tightly. He didn't know how to feel about Wanxing offering him a loan. He should have been happy, but he didn't want to leave Siyao. Wanxing watched him for a while. You haven't fallen for Siyao, have you? Yichen immediately shook his head. No. I haven't. How could I possibly like her? Lu Wanxing frowned and said nothing. Song Yichen hurriedly grabbed Lu Wanxing's hand. Wanxing, I know you're very kind, but I already owe Siyao a lot of money. I can't owe you as well. I don't like Siyao. I know. When Siyao only sees me as a stand-in, I won't entertain any other thoughts. You have to believe me. Looking at the endearing young man before her, Lu Wanxing felt a stir in her heart, but she still let go of Song Yichen's hand. Gushai was coming back. Think it through carefully. Song Yichen stood frozen in place. Of course he knew who I was. That was the name when Siyao called out when she was drunk. That was a world he could never touch. I was the man who would leave him the moment when Siyao appeared. When Siyao naturally saw my interview as well, and learned that I was coming back. When Siyao was excited. At the same time, she also thought of Lu Wanxing's words, so she arranged to meet Song Yichen. At the apartment she had given Song Yichen. Song Yichen prepared dinner, and waited eagerly for Wen Siyao to come see him. When she arrived, he instead saw her hand him a contract, saying that she wanted to end their relationship. They'll give you a sum of money as agreed. You can have this apartment too. Don't appear in front of me again. Our relationship ends here. They'll make the necessary arrangements with the hospital. You don't need to worry. Song Yichen tightened his grip on the contract in his hand. His eyes were filled with tears. Unwilling to give up, he asked why. When Siyao answered without the slightest hesitation, "Has coming back." Song Yichen felt as if his heart were bleeding. After 2 years with her, he had never expected her to show the slightest reluctance to let him go. Was he really nothing more than a stand-in? Seeing that he remained silent, when Siyao grew somewhat impatient and wanted to leave, Song Yichen hurriedly grabbed her clothes and looked at her. "Could you fulfill one last request from me?" When Siyao said nothing, but she didn't pull away either. Song Yichen's heart ached terribly. His voice was thick with emotion. "I want to celebrate your birthday with you one more time. Can I?" When Siyao thought about it, her birthday was the following week, and I wouldn't be back until the month after that. That didn't seem to be a problem, so she agreed. Song Yichen prepared the birthday banquet with great excitement. He booked a private karaoke room in advance, and decorated it himself. He also invited all of Wen Xiao's close friends. Song Yichen told himself, once this birthday was over, he would leave once and for all, take his mother back to their hometown, and make sure Wen Xiao could never find him again. There were many people at the birthday party, and they were all Wen Xiao's friends. Naturally, she wasn't going to keep a stern expression. Song Yichen, sitting beside her, entertained the guests like the man of the house. She didn't notice anything unusual. Lu Wanxing, sitting nearby, didn't look very pleased. Just as they were about to blow out the candles, and everyone began egging them on to kiss, the door to the private room was pushed open. I walked in, also dressed in a white suit. Am I late? They were just about to blow out the candles. There was no music playing in the room. Hearing the sound, everyone turned to look. The suggestive atmosphere instantly turned into awkwardness and anticipation of a spectacle. Their gazes kept shifting between Song Yichen and me. The difference between the real person and the stand-in was obvious. Song Yichen was simply handsome. Gu Shai, on the other hand, was handsome, composed, and elegant. While everyone watched the spectacle, they also complained about Wen Xiao. Her taste was truly terrible. How could anyone think these two looked alike? I first glanced at Wen Xiao, sizing up her appearance. She looked much more mature than the woman in my memories. Then I looked toward the male lead, and couldn't help smiling. Another pretty boy type, though he did indeed look like the original owner used to. But during this time, I had infused the original owner's body with my own aura. Together with his years of experience abroad, this had made him increasingly elegant and composed. Now we didn't look alike at all. When no one said anything, I raised an eyebrow. Am I not welcome? Before I could finish speaking, I was pulled into an embrace. I looked over the other person's shoulder, only to find that Wen Xiao's seat was already empty. His eyes met mine. It was Song Yichen, his face filled with pain and sorrow. When Siyao wished she could meld the person before her into her very flesh and blood, she had realized how much she had missed him. Everyone found the scene increasingly awkward. Several men gathered together, whispering among themselves. Their eyes were full of disdain and mockery as they looked at Song Yichen. Song Yichen's flushed face had gone deathly pale. He could barely remain standing, and staggered back several steps. Hey, that's enough. We didn't come here to watch you two flaunt your affection. Exactly, Wen Xiao. If you want to be lovey-dovey, go home and be lovey-dovey. Exactly. Her friends teased her. Wen Xiao let go of me, her eyes filled with excitement and affection when she saw my face. After hearing that, she actually took my hand and prepared to leave. You're really leaving? Don't. We finally managed to get everyone together. Besides, we want to see Gushai too. It's been so long since we last saw him. Exactly. That's right. You can't keep him all to yourself. As they spoke, they came forward and pulled me from Wen Xiao's embrace, then greeted me one after another. I smiled and answered everyone's questions. After everyone had spoken, I happened to be pushed in front of Lu Wanxing. I looked at her and smiled, then opened my arms. Lu Wanxing stared at me as I approached. Her mind went blank. I raised an eyebrow in displeasure. What is it, old Lu? No hug. Hearing the familiar form of address, Lu Wanxing broke into a smile and reached out to hug me. I looked down at Lu Wanxing, her head buried in my arms, and said softly, I really missed you. Lu Wanxing stiffened and looked up somewhat flusteredly. She saw everyone around them smiling at them without any other strange reaction and couldn't help wondering whether she had heard me wrong, seeing that we were still embracing without letting go. When Siyao frowned slightly and walked over, she pulled me out of Lu Wanxing's arms. All right, catching up is enough. Sensing the sudden emptiness in her arms, Lu Wanxing flexed her fingers, slightly unaccustomed to it. Oh my, are you jealous? When Siyao, you look awful when you're jealous. When Siyao glared at them, without saying anything, she simply tightened her grip on me, overflowing with possessiveness. I smiled as I listened to them tease her, but my gaze had already settled on the male lead who looked ready to cry. I haven't met this friend before. Who is he? I looked at everyone, waiting for them to introduce him. The cheerful atmosphere instantly turned cold. Everyone awkwardly looked away. Only a few of the men looked as though they were enjoying the spectacle, watching me with meaningful looks. Seeing this, I turned to Wen Siyao with an innocent, trusting look. When Siyao met my gaze, her heart filled with guilt and unease. She turned her head toward Lu Wanxing. Lu Wanxing had already thrown herself into Song Yichen's arms. Her expression looked somewhat unnatural. Has my boyfriend? When I heard that, my eyes widened. Old Lu, you found someone? Lu Wanxing let go of Song Yichen. What are you talking about? I broke into a smile and extended my hand toward Song Yichen. Hello, my name is Gushai. I'm Wen Siyao's boyfriend. Song Yichen looked at the fair, slender hand before him, then self-consciously extended his own calloused hand. Song Yichen. I shook his hand. My gaze casually sized him up. Song Yichen, you don't need to be so formal. We're all good friends here. Old Lu and I met in college. It's been nearly 7 or 8 years. Lu Wanxing interjected from the side. It's been almost 9 years. You don't even remember how long you've been abroad. I smiled faintly. What? I hear a lot of resentment in your voice. Did you all support me back then? My gentle voice stirred Lu Wanxing's heart and reminded her of what I had said earlier. I continued chatting with Song Yichen. I didn't expect you to like white suits too. Our taste must be pretty similar. Let's go have fun together sometime. Seeing my innocent expression, several friends turned their faces away, afraid they might lose control, and blurred out the truth. Seeing me spending so much time with Song Yichen, Wen Siyao felt uneasy too. She quickly pulled me over to sit beside her, then asked me softly, "Where's my birthday present?" I tilted my head and teased, "Does coming back early count as a birthday present?" Wen Siyao smiled and said. The others followed suit and sat down, seeing how affectionate Wen Siyao and I were. Then looking at Song Yichen beside us, they all couldn't help frowning. Halfway through, I went to the restroom. When Siyao looked at Song Yichen, who hadn't spoken since earlier. You should go home. Song Yichen had thought he couldn't possibly feel any worse. But when Siyao's single sentence plunged him into pain all over again. No, you promise me. When Siyao said nothing, at that moment, nothing was more important to her than Gushai. Song Yichen understood her thoughts from her expression. He sneered. Whenever he appears, nothing else is as important as he is it? When Siyao made her position clear through her silence, tears streamed down Song Yichen's face. The friends beside him also began trying to persuade him. Yichen, just go home for now. Otherwise, what if Gushai sees you and finds out? Song Yichen's face went deathly pale. He had actually considered these people his friends, because they were Wen Siyao's friends. He had always treated them with genuine sincerity, remembered every one of their birthdays, and prepared gifts for them. Yet the moment Gushai returned, they all told him to leave. I'm not leaving. You promised me. You promised to let me stay and celebrate your birthday with you. Song Yichen clenched his teeth and stood by his decision. When Siyao frowned, I don't need you to celebrate my birthday with me. Song Yichen questioned her with red-rimmed eyes. But I was the one who spent the past 2 birthdays with you. I only have one wish. I only want to celebrate one last birthday with you. Can't you even grant me that? You clearly promised me. One of the men couldn't help speaking up. Enough. Don't make this so ugly. The real one is back now. Who would still want a substitute like you now? Exactly. Another man joined in, mocking him. Song Yichen, have you even looked at yourself? You can't compare to the real one at all. Why don't you look in a mirror? You've been told to leave, yet you still won't go. How shameless. Hearing these words, Song Yichen looked at Wen Siyao with a wounded expression. But although Wen Siyao frowned, she didn't say a word. Song Yichen's heart was already shattered beyond repair. Enough. Lu Wanxing thought their words were getting increasingly cruel and couldn't help intervening. Then she looked at Song Yichen. I'll take you home. Song Yichen stubbornly refused to leave her. He walked over to Wen Siyao and took Wen Siyao's hand. I don't want to leave. Lu Wanxing frowned. Enough. Just let old Lu take you home. Otherwise, if Gushai really finds out, you're dressed exactly like Gushai today. If he discovers that you're his substitute. I pushed the door open and walked in just then. What substitute? The private room fell silent again. When Siyao saw me appear, she immediately slapped Song Yichen's hand away from hers. The back of Song Yichen's hand hurt badly, but his heart hurt even more. His face was already as pale as it could be. He looked at Siyao in anguish. His eyes were full of hurt. The sound drew my attention, and I saw Song Yichen holding Siyao's hand. My brows immediately furrowed. My gaze moved between Siyao and Song Yichen. Aren't you old Lu's boyfriend? The question made the private room even quieter. Siyao quickly stood and walked toward me, I raised a hand to stop her. Siyao stopped where she was, looking at me with a complicated expression. I glanced at her, then looked at Wanxing. Which one of you is going to explain this? What substitute? Who is my substitute? Wanxing lowered her head, trying to hide herself, hoping no one would remember that she had just been the one to speak. I looked at Siyao. Siyao said nothing. I looked at Wanxing again. Wanxing merely pressed her lips together and stayed silent. I let out a cold laugh. Then I turned and picked Wanxing out of the crowd. Wanxing, you tell me, who is whose substitute? He's your substitute. Wanxing froze for a moment after being singled out, then gave an awkward laugh. Gushai, it's not what you think. We were just talking about gossip. Gossip? Yes, that's all. We were talking about gossip. Don't misunderstand. I let out a cold laugh. Do you take me for an idiot? Do these reactions look like people discussing gossip? The other swallowed whatever they were about to say. I looked at Song Yichen. Why don't you, Mr. Song, tell us whose boyfriend you are? Song Yichen's face burned, as if his dignity were being ground into the dirt. I pretended to notice only then that Song Yichen was dressed almost exactly like me. No wonder something had felt off the moment I walked in. I looked across the crowd at Wanxing. Old Lu, is he really your boyfriend? Wanxing pursed her lips and looked at me. After a long while, she shook her head with her eyes rimmed in red. I turned my gaze to Siyao. Then he's your boyfriend. Siyao hurriedly denied it. No. You're the only boyfriend I have. I raised my hand and slapped Siyao. You're shameless. The slap turned Siyao's face to the side. Song Yichen looked at Siyao with concern. The others fell silent as well because of the slap. I looked at Siyao in disappointment. Explain all of this to your parents, to mine as well, and tell them about the awful things you've done. I was blind. With that, I turned and walked out. Wanxing stood up. She crossed the room in a few steps and shoved Siyao. Go after him. Only then did Siyao come to her senses and run after me. After Siyao caught up with me, she immediately launched into an explanation. There's nothing between him and me. I've never even held his hand. Shy, please, don't do this. Please forgive me, all right? I was just confused for a moment. Please don't be like this. Please, I just missed you too much. I couldn't help myself. I looked at her coldly. I don't want to hear it. Siyao stopped, I looked perfectly calm. I had never allowed myself to look pathetic. So even at that moment, I still looked as handsome as ever. Siyao, let's take some time to calm down. I don't know whether anything you're saying right now is true. I don't trust you anymore. I need some time to clear my head. Let's not see each other for a while. Siyao felt a chill run down her back. You're going to abandon me? I turned my back to her. Then what do you expect me to do? I came back full of joy to celebrate your birthday with you. And this is what you did. You found someone else. Siyao, you were the one who betrayed me. Siyao quickly pulled me around. I didn't do it. Believe me. Please forgive me this once. Please. At first, I struggled, but eventually, I let her pull me along as we took some time to calm down. I'll sort out my emotions. Take some time to sort yourself out and untangle your complicated relationships. We'll talk then. Siyao immediately agreed. Okay, I'll deal with him. We'll talk after I've dealt with him. Promise me that you'll give me another chance. I thought it over and agreed. Wanxing saw Song Yichen home. Only then, returning to her apartment. Along the way, the image of my breakdown filled her mind. Wanxing's heart ached. From the very beginning, she should never have let Siyao do something like this. She had only just reached the apartment entrance when Wanxing saw a figure sitting outside her door. Wanxing held her breath, hardly daring to believe it. She blinked. The white figure did not disappear. I looked up and saw Wanxing frozen in place. I stood up because I had been sitting for so long. My legs were a little numb, and I could not stand steadily. I started to fall down the steps. Wanxing hurried forward and caught me. I leaned helplessly against her. I complained softly, asking why she had taken so long to come back. At that moment, Wanxing deeply regretted it. She should not have gone to see Song Yichen home. As she touched my icy arm, Wanxing's remorse grew even heavier. She apologized while helping me inside. I'll give you a key in a moment. Then you can let yourself in next time. You came without even calling me. If you called, wouldn't I have come back? Wanxing nagged as she spoke. While putting me on the sofa, she went to the bedroom, brought out a blanket, and wrapped it around me. Then she immediately went to the kitchen to boil water. I sat on the sofa with my head lowered. looking dejected. Lu Wanxing boiled the water while watching me on the sofa, her eyes filled with tenderness. The system did not quite understand what it was seeing. Host: Lu Wanxing is the female supporting character. Why did you come here? I lowered my head. The tip of my nose was red from the cold. My eyes were red too. Hearing the system, I curled the corner of my lips. Didn't you say we didn't need to worry about deviations from the plot? Then of course I had to make her pay. How could betraying a friend have no consequences? Of course I had to make her regret it. In the story, Lu Wanxing was a mutual friend of the original host and Wen Siyao. But although she saw Wen Siyao cheating, she neither stopped her nor warned the original host. She even blamed the original host for coming back because Song Yichen was upset. And I smiled. How could I let someone else blame me? Of course, I had to stand on the moral high ground and blame someone else. Lu Wanxing handed me the glass of water. She wanted to say something, but did not know how to begin. For some reason, at that moment, Lu Wanxing was reluctant to mention Wen Siyao. I took a sip of the hot water. It felt slightly warm. I raised my head and met Lu Wanxing's gaze. Lu Wanxing immediately fell into my sparkling gaze. She stared at me blankly. She carefully crouched in front of me. When did you find out? Lu Wanxing came back to herself and did not dare look at me. She tilted her head toward one side, avoiding my gaze. I immediately understood her hesitation. One said with certainty, "You knew from the beginning." I forced a bitter smile. So, you knew from the beginning, but did not tell me, and even helped her deceive me. Lu Wanxing pressed her lips together. I'm sorry. I lowered my head. Wanxing, are we still friends? Lu Wanxing hurriedly said, of course. We've always been friends. I looked up at her. My eyes held undisguised disappointment. So over the past 2+ years, I sent you so many messages. Did you ever even think of telling me? Lu Wanxing lowered her head. She had thought about it, but she was afraid I would be hurt. She clearly remembered that when I said I was leaving to pursue my dream, there had been a light in my eyes. If, because of this, I gave up my dream, Lu Wanxing did not dare imagine whether I would regret it. So she had never told me. I know the answer now. I set the glass down properly. I pushed Lu Wanxing away and stood up to leave. Seeing this, Lu Wanxing hurriedly grabbed me. Where are you going? I looked back at her. My eyes were full of sadness. Wanxing, are you still the Lu Wanxing I knew? Seeing the sorrow on my face, Lu Wanxing sighed and hugged me. I'm sorry. Don't be sad. This was all my fault. I should have stopped her from the very beginning. I don't know whether I had been wound too tight or had held myself together too long, but I suddenly broke down. What did I do wrong? Why did you have to treat me like this? Listening to me cry, Lu Wanxing felt as though a knife had pierced her heart. The pain stabbing again and again. They had hurt me. She had no way to answer. She could only hold me tightly. The system watched me cling to the second female lead and sob my heart out, and could not help clicking its tongue when it saw me fall asleep and be helped to the bedroom by the second female lead. The system was still somewhat nervous, but then it saw the second female lead protect the host like a precious treasure. She gently wiped his face and tucked him in. Then she left with extreme care. When Lu Wanxing got up the next morning, I was, of course, already gone. Seeing the breakfast on the table, Lu Wanxing felt a warmth in her heart. She ate the breakfast, which had already gone somewhat cold. She sent me a message and then went to work. After I left Lu Wanxing's apartment, I went home. I went with my parents to meet several elders. When Siyao's parents were among them. Shiye has grown up. He's become even more handsome. Isn't that right? Not only is he handsome, he's a talented young man now. That's right, old goo. You'll be able to enjoy a comfortable life in your old age. I held my mother's arm with a proper, gracious smile on my face. Many of the elders began praising me. When Siyao's parents heard everyone around them praising me, they both smiled from ear to ear. As for my going abroad for further study, Wen's mother had originally been rather dissatisfied, but now my excellence made her especially proud. She was also very pleased to call me her future son-in-law. I naturally found time to speak privately with Wen's father and Wen's mother to greet them, and told them I had brought gifts from abroad, which I would bring with me when I visited their home another day. Wen's father was very pleased with such a well-mannered future son-in-law. He nodded and gave Wen's mother the floor. Wen's mother was, of course, satisfied. She held my hand and spoke to me warmly for a while. It was only when someone came to look for Wen's father that she reluctantly let him go. Near the end of the elders' banquet, I finally saw the person I had wanted to meet. Wanning, Wen Siyao's maternal aunt. She was the Mu family patriarch's daughter, born late in his life, and was now 29 years old. She was only 4 years older than Wen Siyao. This was a private gathering. Everyone there was a long-time acquaintance, and everyone was around Gushai's parents' age. Only Wanning and I were from the youngest generation there. When I spotted Wanning, she was lying on a rattan chair on the 3rd floor, basking in the sun. A book covered her face. Hearing the sound, Wanning opened her eyes and removed the book from her face. She looked up and saw a man in a white suit standing before her. Wanning frowned slightly and lowered the book in her hand a little, just as she raised her eyes to send him away. She saw the perfect physique outline beneath the suit. Wanning's eyes widened slightly, and her fingertips could not help rubbing the book's cover. I asked Wanning with a smile, "You like this book too?" "I went to several bookstores, but couldn't buy it anywhere. Could I borrow it?" Wanning rose from the rattan chair. Without hesitation, she handed him the book. "Sure." I was somewhat delighted, and quickly held out both hands. When I accepted the book, I accidentally touched Wanning's hand. When Wanning withdrew her hand, she could not help touching the tip of her nose. Holding the book, I sat across from Wanning. I first opened the book and read for a while before closing it. Then I looked up at Wanning. "By the way, my name is Gushai. What's your name?" Wanning raised her brows slightly and thought to herself, "Is this just someone with the same name? Or is he really that Gushai?" Wanning. My eyes lit up. I took out my phone. "Let's exchange contact information. After I finish this book, I'll take Ms. Mu out for a meal." Wanning watched him and then sat down as well. His suit trousers pulled taut, outlining the muscles of his legs and making her heart flutter. Wanning hunched slightly to hide her thoughts. She took out her phone and exchanged contact information with him. After successfully getting his contact information, I settled comfortably against the back of the chair and opened the book in my hands to read. The corners of my lips lifted slightly, as though I truly adored the book. Wanning did not leave either, but simply sat across from him. Her eyes swept over his perfect profile from time to time, yet he remained completely unaware. The two of them sat quietly like that, one reading a book and the other watching the scenery. They remained that way until someone came to call them for lunch, and only then did I get up to leave. After walking out of the balcony, I turned around and came back. I waved the book in my hand. "I'll take you out to eat after I finish it." Only after he disappeared from sight did Wanning rub the web between her thumb and forefinger to suppress the lingering itch. After I returned from the banquet, I stayed home and read until I had finished the entire book. Only then did I open my email. The email contained the information I had asked a private investigator to collect about Song Yichen. Song Yichen's mother had leukemia. Because there was no suitable bone marrow for a transplant, she had been staying in the hospital for chemotherapy. The expenses involved were, of course, all paid by the female lead. I looked at Song Yichen's address and read the investigator's report on Song Yichen's daily routine. Knowing that he was working at a coffee shop that day, I went there to find him. "Welcome. What would you like to drink?" When Song Yichen looked up, the smile on his face froze. He had already seen the person before him once at the previous banquet. I looked Song Yichen up and down. At the previous banquet, Song Yichen had been wearing clothes bought by Siyao. Today, he was wearing his own clothes. Under the other man's scrutiny, Song Yichen suddenly became uncomfortable. After looking at him a few times, I found a seat by the window and sat down. "A latte, please." Song Yichen came back to his senses. "Certainly. Please wait a moment." While the coffee was brewing, Song Yichen kept glancing at me from time to time. He had to admit that the other man was indeed elegant and handsome, unlike himself. But when he thought of Siyao's face, Song Yichen's face paled slightly. Song Yichen placed the freshly brewed coffee in front of me. "Please enjoy." I called out to Song Yichen as he turned to leave. "Wait." Song Yichen's back stiffened slightly, but he still turned around. "Is there anything else you need?" I stirred the coffee with a spoon and said, "I want to ask you something. When you became Siyao's lover, did you know she had a fiance?" Song Yichen froze where he stood, his face deathly pale. When his mother was diagnosed with leukemia, and he felt as though the sky were falling, it was when Siyao who helped hold him up. She arranged the best hospital for his mother, found specialists to treat his mother, and paid the exorbitant medical bills. Just as he was overjoyed, she suddenly produced an agreement, ordering him to follow another person's clothing preferences when dressing himself, to adopt that person's taste, and to play that person's stand-in. Song Yichen felt as though the sky had fallen again, but he could not refuse. He had no way to refuse Siyao. She was his mother's savior, and also the person he loved. So Song Yichen thought he could be a little selfish, and while that person was away, keep Siyao company. But at some point, the two of them crossed the line. Siyao treated him better and better, taking him to meet her close friends, and he, in turn, fell more and more in love with Siyao. Had the person before him not appeared, Song Yichen might have been dazed into believing that he was the person Siyao had always longed for. Seeing him like this, I understood everything. I asked mockingly, "So, even knowing that Siyao had a fiance, you still agreed to be her lover?" Song Yichen's face turned slightly green, and his eyes reddened, as if someone had trampled his dignity underfoot. But I did not stop, and continued questioning him. "Then do you know that Siyao and I did not get engaged because of our parents' wishes, but because we liked each other, and became engaged because we truly loved each other. Song Yichen gripped his apron tightly. He remembered a time when Siyao came to him drunk and kept murmuring Gushai's name. Yichen had just finished serving the customers and was about to speak to Song Yichen when he saw him standing there, pale-faced, and frowned. He was about to go over when he heard the other man mention Wen Xiao's name. Looking at the customer's designer clothes, Yichen assumed he was a wealthy young man who admired Wen Xiao and had come to pick a fight with Song Yichen, her official boyfriend. He hurriedly called Wen Xiao. When Wen Xiao received the call, she was with Lu Wanxing. Seeing that Wen Xiao's expression was off, Lu Wanxing asked her what was wrong. Wen Xiao frowned. Yichen had called to say that someone was giving Song Yichen trouble. Lu Wanxing's expression turned grim. You still haven't completely cut ties with him. Wen Xiao's expression also darkened. That day, she had originally intended to make things clear with Song Yichen. Who could have known that Song Yichen's mother's condition would suddenly worsen? So she stayed with him for another night. The things she needed to say remained unspoken. Seeing Wen Xiao's expression, Lu Wanxing's face darkened completely. You're not actually going, are you? Wen Xiao's expression turned solemn. I'm afraid it might be Song Yichen's cousin. Lu Wanxing frowned. Song Yichen's cousin? She had met him once. A gambling addict and a complete scumbag who often beat Song Yichen when demanding money from him. I'll go with you. The coffee shop where Song Yichen worked part-time wasn't far from Wen Xiao's company. It was a 10-minute drive. They soon arrived at the shop. Song Yichen and I were still confronting each other. Mr. Song, what will it take for you to leave my fiancé? Song Yichen's expression stiffened. Clutching his apron, he took a long time to say a word. I'm sorry, Mr. Gu. I really need money. I frowned. How much do you need? I can give it to you. Song Yichen looked humiliated, pressing his lips together and refusing to speak. From a distance, Yichen saw that Song Yichen was on the verge of tears and hurried over. He smiled at me. Hey, handsome, is there anything else you need? I glanced at him and ignored him, instead continuing to look at Song Yichen. Mr. Song, you're staying by Wen Xiao's side. Only for the money. I can give you money. I only hope you'll leave her. Song Yichen lowered his head and nearly burst into tears. Hearing this, Yichen's temper flared. What he hated most were rich people, using money to bully others. What are you saying? Can money buy love? Our Yichen isn't with CEO Wen. Because of money, there's true love between them. Who are you? What right do you have to ask someone's official boyfriend to leave? Song Yichen tugged at Yichen's sleeve. I sneered. Official boyfriend? Is this what you've been telling everyone? Yichen couldn't stand the mocking tone. He stepped forward and stood in front of Song Yichen. Hey, who are you? Don't think having a little money makes you something. Do you think we're afraid of you? Yichen's voice was loud, and everyone else in the coffee shop looked over. I wasn't afraid in the slightest. Who am I? Surely Mr. Song hasn't told you? I'm the fiance of the CEO when you mentioned. Yichen was about to retort when he realized what the other man had said. He froze where he stood. Her fiance. That's right. When Siyao and I had been in love for 7 years and got engaged 3 years ago. How did I not know that when Siyao had an official boyfriend? Yichen slowly looked towards Song Yichen and found him standing there with a deathly pale face, without any intention of refuting it. Yichen's heart sank. I continued, not for money? As far as I know, Mr. Song, you're still a college student, right? The cost of Mr. Song's father's hospitalization and treatment must have been at least several $100,000. Can Mr. Song really claim that when Siyao didn't pay this money? I wonder in what capacity Mr. Song has been spending Wen Xiao's money. The customers in the coffee shop stared over in shock. This is the bride-to-be tearing into the kept pretty boy. What a spectacle. When Wen Xiao and Lu Wanxing entered, they only saw Song Yichen with his head bowed, tears hanging on his cheeks, while Yichen blocked me from view. Wen Xiao didn't see me. When she saw this scene, her anger blazed. She rushed over and pulled Song Yichen to her side. Who bullied you? Yichen turned around at the sound of her voice. When Siyao happened to look over and happened to meet my eyes, exposed when Yichen shifted to the side. When Siyao froze where she stood. Once she recovered, she quickly flung Song Yichen's hand away. Song Yichen was knocked into a nearby table. He looked at Wen Xiao in disbelief. I gave a bitter smile. So this is what you call giving me another chance, after promising to handle it. When Siyao took 2 steps forward. No, it's not like that. I didn't. But when she approached, I immediately stood up and backed away. Don't come any closer. When Siyao, I'm so disappointed in you. You truly disgust me. After saying that, I took the coffee in my hand and splashed it in Siyao's face. Then I took several hundred yuan bills from my bag and placed them on the table before walking away. When Siyao wiped the coffee from her face and was about to chase after me, when Wanxing stopped her, "Don't provoke him any further. I'm worried something will happen to him." When Siyao instantly grew even more worried, but wanted to chase after me and couldn't, Wanxing added, "I'll go check on him. Take care of yourself first." Watching Wanxing chase after me, when Siyao felt increasingly tormented, Yichen stood where he was, looking rather troubled. His friend, whom he had believed to be innocent, had actually become a kept man, knowingly taking the role of the other man. Yichen straightened up and only then managed to steady himself, only to meet Siyao's gaze. His heart lurched when Siyao looked coldly at Yichen, her voice carrying a hint of hatred. "Don't appear before me again, and stay away from him." After saying that, when Siyao strode away, in an instant, everyone in the coffee shop looked at Yichen with disapproval. Several regulars in particular had once thought this young man was innocent. Who would have thought he was such a schemer? After hearing Siyao's words, Yichen felt as though his heart had been pierced. He covered his chest in pain, thinking someone would come to comfort him. But even after a long while, he heard no one say a word. He couldn't help looking toward Yichen, only to see that, at some point, Yichen had already returned to the counter and begun attending to the customers. Wanxing caught up with me and pulled me to her side. She hailed a taxi and soon brought me back to her apartment. As soon as I entered the apartment, I stopped. Wanxing, who had been leading me, saw this and stopped as well. She turned to me and asked gently, "What's wrong?" I suddenly rushed into her arms. I held her tightly. Wanxing was startled at first, then hugged me tightly. I spoke in a muffled voice. "Wanxing, do I only have you now?" Wanxing's heart ached terribly as she held me tightly in her arms. "Don't be sad. You still have me." I stayed at Wanxing's place for another night. The next morning, I left breakfast behind as usual and left. When I got home and found an extra set of keys in my bag, my lips curled slightly. One more has taken the bait. I ran my fingers over the book on the bedside table, then took out my phone and sent Wanning a message. "Ms. Gu, I've finished the book. When are you free? I'll treat you to a meal and return the book while I'm at it." When Wanning received the message, she was listening to her assistant report on work. Wanning saw the message and raised an eyebrow slightly. The first thing that came to mind was those strong, slender legs. The assistant stood silently to the side, waiting for her boss to reply. She was astonished inwardly. She had been the boss's assistant for 5 years, but had never seen her use WeChat. She was only 29, yet she behaved like a woman in her 50s. While flirting with Wanning over messages, I also began organizing my own art exhibition. Because of my efforts abroad, my fame had grown rapidly. As soon as people heard I was holding an exhibition, many of them offered their sponsorship. I brought out the paintings I had completed before, using most of them as exhibits for the show. I only needed to paint a few more works before I could hold the exhibition. "You want to paint the starry sky?" While chatting with me, Wanning learned that I was planning an art exhibition and was preparing to paint a starry sky. She quickly called me. I was somewhat surprised to receive the call, but you can't see a beautiful starry sky in the city, so I had no desire to paint one. Wanning raised an eyebrow, her voice carrying a hint of temptation. "I know a place where you can see a beautiful starry sky." My voice instantly filled with surprise. "Really?" Wanning's lips curled slightly. "Do you want to go?" Wanning smiled and opened her schedule. As she checked her availability, I noticed what she was thinking. My lips curled slightly, my voice carrying a hint of suggestiveness. "How about I treat you to dinner, Ms. Gu, and you take me to see the stars?" Wanning wasn't falling for it. "You still haven't treated me to the meal you owed me last time." I smiled. "Then I'll save it for next time." When I went to see Wanning, I deliberately changed into a different outfit. A fitted short-sleeved shirt paired with athletic shorts. The outline of my 8-pack abs was faintly visible, radiating a heady, youthful allure that was both wild and seductive. I went straight to Wanning's company. When I reached the reception desk, I saw a woman wearing glasses standing there. She came over to ask when she saw me. "Hello, Mr. Gu. I'm Boss Mu's assistant. Ms. Mu asked me to come and get you." The assistant wore a smile and a gentle expression, but couldn't help screaming inwardly. No wonder even her usually stiff and proper boss couldn't put down her phone with a man this handsome around. "Okay, thank you." I smiled slightly and followed the assistant toward the elevator. Wanning was reading the documents in her hands. Since she was going out with me, she had consolidated some of her work, so there were more documents to review. Hearing the steady footsteps approaching, Wanning quickly realized that it wasn't her assistant coming in. She hurriedly looked up and saw a tall, slender figure standing before her. Before she even looked up, her throat was already itching. I walked over to Wanning and sat on her desk. Boss Mu, can't you take the day off today? Mu Wanning looked at the apps right in front of her and rubbed her fingers together, suppressing the rush of heat. Then she looked up at me. Can't wait. I smiled. There's still half an hour before the materials I ordered are delivered. I wonder whether Boss Mu can finish all this within half an hour. I poked the pile of documents in front of Mu Wanning. Mu Wanning lowered her head and chuckled. Of course. Half an hour later. We'll leave on time. I raised an eyebrow. What about dinner? Mu Wanning looked at the leg swinging in front of her and really wanted to say that she didn't want to eat, but replied instead. There's a restaurant over there, and the food is pretty good. I nodded, then rose in satisfaction and went to sit on the sofa nearby. I deliberately sat facing Mu Wanning sideways, before half reclining on the sofa and playing with my phone. Mu Wanning kept staring at that figure, until I suddenly laughed at something I had seen. Only then did Mu Wanning come back to her senses and lower her head to deal with the documents. Half an hour later, the assistant knocked and entered, carrying my painting supplies. Mr. Gu, these are yours? I rose from the sofa, wearing a broad smile. They're mine. Thank you. Faced with the handsome man's smile, the assistant's lips spread into a smile as well. Before she could say anything, she heard her boss's voice. Once you've delivered them, leave. I smiled and waved at her, then carried the supplies over to Mu Wanning. I placed them on the desk, then sat on Mu Wanning's desk. I nudged her chair with my foot. Boss Mu, aren't you getting off work yet? Mu Wanning looked at the person in front of her, then glanced at the documents in her hand. In the end, she made a decision and closed the files. She rose and walked over to me, moving close. I looked straight at Mu Wanning without flinching. The two of us drew closer and closer, the warmth of our breath spilling across each other's faces. Mu Wanning tilted her head slightly, bringing the corner of her mouth close to my lips. She stopped just as we were about to kiss. Then let's leave work early today. Only after saying that did Mu Wanning straighten up. Her left hand was already carrying the things I had placed on the desk. Mu Wanning adjusted her clothes, as if she had only leaned in to help me pick them up. She looked at me with a perfectly serious expression. Let's go. Work's over. A smile spread across my face, as though I had been waiting for Mu Wanning for ages. I climbed down from the desk and walked beside Mu Wanning, following her outside. I got into Mu Wanning's car and fastened her seatbelt for her as though it were the most natural thing in the world. I leaned back in the car, looking around from side to side. After inspecting everything, I took a small safety talisman sachet from my bag and hung it in her car. Mu Wanning watched me act as though she belonged to me, but instead of getting angry, she merely smiled faintly. Then she started the car. This was a resort, and one that had not even been completed yet. When they were almost there, Mu Wanning turned her head and glanced at the man sitting quietly in the passenger seat. She glanced at me from the corner of her eye. Aren't you afraid I'll sell you? Hearing this, I looked up from my phone and turned toward Mu Wanning. How much could I possibly be worth? Mu Wanning chuckled. You'd still fetch a decent price. I smiled and looked at the scenery along the roadside. This place isn't open yet, is it? Mu Wanning nodded. That's right. So, you're the first guest to come here. Everyone wants to feel special. Hearing that, I was genuinely happy. The car stopped beside a lake. I got out and saw lotus leaves covering the lake. I turned to Mu Wanning and said, we should have come in June. Mu Wanning smiled. I'll bring you back then. The lake was very large. There was a stretch of sandy beach beside the lake. It was covered with pebbles. I walked across the pebbles, in an excellent mood. Mu Wanning handed the car keys to the manager in charge of the place, then quietly instructed him to prepare some specialty dishes and have the house in the middle of the lake cleaned. After giving those instructions, Mu Wanning finally caught up with me. I walked along the lakeside, my figure appearing even more slender beside the lake. Mu Wanning came to my side. The night sky is beautiful here. You can enjoy it properly tonight. I turned my head to look at her, my eyes filled with amusement. Thank you so much, Boss Mu. Mu Wanning smiled and walked beside me, introducing the resort's origins and selling points. So many of the people here originally lived in this village. I looked at Mu Wanning in surprise. Mu Wanning nodded. That's right. I bought their land, and they rent my houses to live in, while running shops here to make money. It's much better than hiring an entirely new staff. Mu Wanning looked at the resort, which was nearing completion, and smiled. They'll cherish and take better care of this place than my other employees. I smiled. Boss Mu, you really know how to do business. Why don't you teach me? Mu Wanning raised her head and looked at the person standing before her. Sure, but you'll have to pay tuition. Are you really short of that little bit of money? Mu Wanning looked into those clear eyes before her, the corners of her lips curling into a faint smile. I never said it was money. I raised an eyebrow, seeming intrigued. Then, what do you want? Mu Wanning remained silent for a long while, and after thoroughly whetting my appetite, finally spoke. I'll tell you later. Come on, let's go eat. After saying that, she strode toward the restaurant not far away. After dinner, it was already dark. I was just about to take a walk along the lake to help settle my meal when Wanning tapped me on the head. I turned to look, and Wanning happened to lean over to whisper against my ear, "Look up." I looked up at her words and was stunned. The sky was filled with stars, like pearls of every size scattered across a jade plate, shimmering with light. After returning from the resort, Wanning became busy again. I also felt I had taken things far enough, so I didn't contact Wanning. Instead, I frequently chatted with Siyao and Wanxing. Siyao seemed genuinely eager to make amends and kept sending gifts to my apartment every day. Whether or not I responded, she messaged me every morning and evening whenever she had a free moment. I looked at the overflowing messages on my phone and frowned slightly. I turned off the screen and continued painting the pieces for my exhibition. Actually, I had been back in the country for some time, but my parents still hadn't seen me pay a visit to the Wen family. They noticed that something was wrong and asked me to pay a visit to the Wen elders and arranged for both families to have dinner together. Reluctantly, I took the gifts I had brought back from abroad and went to the Wen residence. The two families did not live very far apart, and it took only half an hour to drive there. I entered carrying the gifts, and immediately saw Wen's mother watching television in the living room. Annie, hearing my voice, Wen's mother quickly got up and came over to welcome me. "You were already coming over. So, why did you bring gifts too? You're making this too formal." I smiled and took the gift in my hand out. "This is a gift for you. When I saw this scarf abroad, I immediately thought it would suit you perfectly. I bought it especially for you and brought it back." When Wen's mother saw that the scarf was her favorite shade of blue, the corners of her mouth rose in satisfaction. "How thoughtful of you to think of me while you were abroad." I put on a sweet, well-behaved expression. "What about Uncle? I brought him a gift too. He's upstairs in the study. He'll be down soon. We didn't get a good look at you last time we met. Why does it seem like you've lost so much weight? Couldn't you get used to the food abroad?" It was fine. I just missed the flavors back home. The two of us sat in the living room chatting before Wen's father came downstairs. When Siyao returned from outside instead, Wen's mother watched her daughter enter with a bouquet of flowers and couldn't help teasing her. "You have come back so many times, but you've never brought me flowers. As soon as you heard he was here, you came carrying flowers. Sure enough, once you have a husband, you forget your mother." When Siyao came over and handed me the flowers, out of consideration for Wen's mother, I accepted them. They were the blue roses I loved most. I turned around and handed the flowers to Wen's mother. "Then I'll pass these flowers on to you and make you happy too." Wen's mother had deliberately been keeping a straight face, but immediately broke into a smile at those words. I smiled. "My parents said we should all have dinner together tonight, since Wen Siyao is back. Why don't we leave now?" Wen's mother nodded in agreement, placed the flowers on the coffee table and said, "I'll go call her father." After Wen's mother's figure disappeared at the stairway, the smile disappeared from my face. When Siyao crouched in front of me and pleaded, "I really have nothing to do with him anymore. Please don't be angry with me anymore, okay?" I turned my face away. No, I didn't look at her or say anything. When Siyao hurriedly said, "I've really cut ties with him completely. Believe me, I've only ever loved you. I just missed you too much. That's why I did something so foolish. You can understand that, can't you? I promise, I really won't have anything to do with him again. I've even blocked him everywhere. Really. Believe me, I admit it was my fault. I know I was terribly wrong. I'm only asking you to give me one more chance. Give our 7-year relationship one more chance. Please don't give up on me so easily, okay?" When she seemed to have said her piece, I was about to say something to placate her when I heard Wen's parents' voices. They had already come downstairs and were walking over. When Siyao did not panic when she heard them, but simply stood up and sat beside me without letting go of my hand. When Wen's parents came over, they saw the young couple sitting close together, looking very affectionate. Wen's mother covered her mouth and smiled, while Wen's father wore a serious expression, though his eyes still held a hint of a smile. After exchanging simple greetings, Wen Siyao stood up. "Let's go. Mom, ride with Dad. You come with me." I sat quietly in the passenger seat. This was different from riding in Wanning's car. With Wanning, I had been relaxed and carefree, deliberately letting myself sink into comfort and ease. Now, I wore a cold, expressionless look. To show that I was still angry, I leaned against the seat back and looked out the window, without giving Wen Siyao so much as a glance. Wen Siyao kept trying to find something to talk about. "I heard you're holding an art exhibition. Is there anything you need my help with?" I looked at the people coming and going outside the car window, feeling somewhat lost. Sometimes I felt that the world was so vast that my insignificant self could be completely overlooked. Sometimes, I even wondered whether I truly existed. Although I was lost in thought, I hadn't forgotten to answer Wen Siyao. "No," I replied coldly. When Siyao was somewhat at a loss, but cautiously tried to bring up a few more topics, all of which earned only a few cool responses from me. When we arrived at the restaurant, I finally turned to look at Wen Siyao before getting out of the car. Promises aren't made with words alone. You asked me to give you a chance. Then you need to take concrete action. You need to show me your determination. I need to see what you do, instead of merely hearing you say it. Right. When Siyao froze. After 7 years together, I don't want our relationship to end without a clear resolution either. I hope you won't disappoint me again. At dinner, the two families inevitably brought up the couple's marriage. Wen's mother turned to the two young people. What do you think? I pressed my lips together. I think it's still a little early. Before I could finish saying early, when Siyao cut me off. We'll go along with whatever mom, dad, uncle, and aunt decide. I turned to look at Wen Siyao. A smile appeared on Wen Siyao's face. She reached under the table and took my hand. I froze for a moment but did not pull away. I furrowed my brows but did not deny anything, seeing that I hadn't openly rejected the idea of marriage. Wen Siyao couldn't help feeling pleased. At last, she showed the most genuine smile she'd worn in days. The elders from both families watched the two young people, as one of us lowered his head shyly, while the other looked at him with a smile. They all couldn't help smiling. Then they continued discussing the marriage. I lowered my head and ate until I was finally driven home. I didn't even notice when the two families had set the date. The fact that the two families were discussing the marriage was not kept secret. Soon, many people knew about it. Wanxin was sitting in a private room in a bar, drinking. She knew that her emotions were not right, but she didn't want to restrain them, and only wanted to indulge herself. When Wanxing came in, she saw Wanxin drinking alone to drown her sorrows, and was somewhat surprised. Lu, what's wrong? Wanxin tugged at the corner of her mouth. Yeah, what's wrong with me? He's marrying Wen Siyao. As a good friend to both of them, shouldn't I be happy? But Wanxin didn't feel happy at all. In fact, her mind was filled with memories of what he was like when the two of us were alone. She knew her feelings were inappropriate. She didn't even know whether she'd begun to feel this way before I went abroad, or after I returned home. Wanxin didn't know, nor could she control it. By the time she realized it, she was already upset because I was getting married. Noticing that something was wrong, when Wanxin couldn't help asking, "What's going on with you? You look like you've been dumped." Wanxin said nothing and didn't deny it. When Wanxin was about to make a joke when she suddenly realized what was going on, she was so startled that she jumped back a step and looked at Wanxin as though she were a monster. Fuck. Seriously, you got your heart broken? When? By whom? Do I know them? Did you dump them, or did they dump you? Wanxin tugged at the corner of her mouth. Dumped. We never even started. How could I dump him from the very beginning? He never even had a chance. Thinking of how I hugged him that day, Wanxin tipped her head back and downed another glass of alcohol. Seeing that this was not right, when Wanxin hurriedly snatched the glass away from her. Hey, talk to me. If you don't tell me, how can I help you solve the problem? Drinking alone won't help. With no alcohol left to drink, Wanxin lowered her head and fell silent. When Wanxin sighed at this, and then tried to change the subject. Shiye and Wen Siyao are getting married. Did you know? I never thought he wouldn't mind. I remember that although he was gentle, he had always had principles. What Wen Siyao did was utterly inexcusable. I can't believe he forgave her so easily. After waiting for a long time without hearing a reply, when Wanxin turned to look at Wanxin and saw that Wanxin's face looked even worse, an outrageous thought suddenly flashed through her mind, and she couldn't keep her mouth shut. So she blurted it out. Don't tell me you're talking about Shiye. Wanxin didn't refute her. After a 3-second pause, when Wanxin jumped to her feet. Fuck. It really is him. Since when? How did I not know? When did you two get involved? When Wanxin answered her own question. No, that wasn't right. He's been abroad all these years. You haven't even gone on a business trip in all these years. There was no way you could have gotten together with him. He clearly loved Wen Siyao so much. He genuinely regarded you as a good friend. There was even less chance that he would cross that line. Unless, when Wanxin turned to look at Wanxin, who had already raised her head, and said with certainty, "You're suffering from unrequited love." Wanxin didn't deny it either. When Wanxin turned and kicked a trash can, she let out a colorful curse. Lu, their wedding date is already set. They're getting married in July. What are you going to do? Wanxin picked up her glass, tipped her head back, and continued pouring alcohol down her throat. This time, when Wanxin didn't stop her, she sat beside Wanxin and sighed. Lu, drink. Drink it off. Once today is over, let it go. Wanxin downed one glass after another, as though getting drunk would make the pain disappear, as though it would make these facts stop being facts. When Wanxin sighed and comforted her from the side. At first, she kept telling Wanxin to let go, but later, her words took on a different tone. Don't be too upset. They aren't married yet. Maybe one day when Siyao will lose her senses again and go looking for Yichen, then he definitely won't forgive her again. You didn't see how when Siyao has been fawning over him these past few days. It was awful to watch. If she'd known it would end this way, Why had she done it in the first place? With Wanxin's incessant muttering, Wanxin got herself drunk. When Wanxin sighed and began escorting this high-maintenance lady home. In the middle of the night, Wanxin got up because she was thirsty. Then she called me. I had already fallen asleep, but the phone vibrated and my eyes flew open. Weren't you asleep? I curved my lips slightly, but said nothing. I picked up the phone and saw Wanxin's name. I raised a brow and lay back down. I answered just before the call was about to end. My voice was groggy with sleep. Wanxin said, "Gushai." I asked, somewhat puzzled, "Laolu?" "I want to see you." Wanxin repeated only the sentence, haltingly. It was as if I had only just realized that something was wrong, and my tone became much more alert. "You don't sound right. I'll come find you." "Where are you now?" she answered. "At my apartment." I hurriedly said, Okay. "Then don't move. I'll be right over." After hanging up, I slowly got out of bed. There was no expression on my face. The system was already numb. It had just watched its host switch between all kinds of tones, while keeping the same calm expression. That did not match his tone at all, and it had gone numb. When I arrived at Wanxin's apartment, it was already past 4 in the morning. Fortunately, Wanxin had given me a key to the apartment earlier, so I didn't have to worry about waking her to open the door. Once inside, I headed straight for the bedroom. I opened the bedroom door and saw no one on the bed. I frowned and swept the room with my peripheral vision. Then I saw Wanxin crouching beside the bed, with most of her body hidden by it. I almost missed her. I walked over and crouched in front of Wanxin, only to find her asleep against the bed. I touched her face, perhaps because I had just come in from outside. My hand was a little cold, and Wanxin woke the instant I touched her. "Gushai, you're here." I nodded. "Why are you sleeping on the floor?" Wanxin said hazily. "Then I won't move. I was afraid you wouldn't find me." "I haven't moved at all." I raised my brows slightly. Her unusually obedient appearance tugged at my heart. I couldn't help ruffling Wanxin's hair. It was almost like I was rewarding my beloved pet, and Wanxin seemed to understand that this was a reward. A smile lifted the corners of her mouth. She became even more obedient. "Come on, go to bed." I helped her to her feet. Seeing Wanxin lying obediently on the bed, I raised my brows and sat at the bedside. I coaxed her carefully. "Why did you drink so much?" Wanxin was like a child being called on by a teacher, and obediently said what was on her mind. "Because I'm unhappy." I asked again, "Why are you unhappy?" "You're getting married." Wanxin tugged at my hand. "Don't get married, okay? When Siyao is no good." I curved my lips slightly, with the thrill of knowing the fish had taken the bait. "Why? When Siyao is a good person." Wanxin hurriedly protested. "She's no good. She is someone else. She treats someone else well. We don't need her. Let's just have fun together, okay?" I smiled. "That's right. She has someone else. But you're clearly on someone else's side too. If you protected me from the very beginning, things wouldn't have ended up this way." Wanxin seemed to be getting sleepy. She kept murmuring that when Siyao was no good, and that she didn't want her, then fell asleep. I tugged at my hand and found I couldn't get free. I couldn't help but wonder whether Wanxin was pretending to be drunk. "System, do you think Wanxin is pretending to be drunk?" The system checked Wanxin's physical data and hurriedly replied, "No." "Host, she's really drunk." I looked at the hand she was holding, then at the fish already on the hook, and smiled faintly. I decided to add fuel to the fire. So I set my phone aside, lifted Wanxin's covers, and laid down beside her. Perhaps sensing the approach of the person beside her, Wanxin quickly wrapped her arms around me and held me tightly, before falling asleep contentedly. The next morning, Wanxin woke groggily. Her hand had just moved when she sensed that something was wrong. Why did it feel as though she was hugging someone? She abruptly opened her eyes and saw a man's head of black hair. Her eyes widened at once. A stampede of profanities raced through Wanxin's mind. She mentally cursed Wanxin 10,000 times. When Wanxin had actually stuffed a man into her bed, the moment Wanxin thought about sleeping with an unfamiliar man in her arms all night, disgust surged through her. She was about to push him awake when her other hand found her phone. She called Wanxin. Then Wanxin noticed the clothes on the bedside table. They looked very familiar. Wanxin hardly dared believe it. She looked at the man beside her. The faint scent of cologne was very similar to mine. When Wanxin answered quickly on the other end, the moment the call connected, she shouted loudly, "Laolu, you're awake. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Good thing you didn't make a fuss while you were drunk." The voice seemed to bother the man beside her. He turned to face her with a slight frown. Wanxin watched this scene and felt as though her heart were about to stop. "Laolu, don't be so upset." Still watching me frown beside her, Lu Wanxin heard Wanxin's voice and hurriedly hung up on her. Lu Wanxin stared at me. When she saw that I hadn't been awakened, she smiled with some satisfaction, then lay down on her side as well. She stared at my handsome face, waiting for me to get up and go to the bathroom. I found that Lu Wanxin had prepared new toiletries for me. I couldn't help raising my brows. After I finished washing up and came out, I saw Lu Wanxin making breakfast in the kitchen. Is your headache gone? Lu Wanxin had no memory at all of what happened the previous night. Although she didn't know why I was here, she was very happy. She got up with a smile and started making breakfast. Hearing the sound, she turned her head. I looked up and met Lu Wanxin's bright, sparkling gaze as she turned around. I couldn't help raising my brows. It doesn't hurt. Did I trouble you last night? As soon as I heard this, I knew Lu Wanxin hadn't remembered anything at all, so I said nothing more, simply shaking my head. No, just don't drink so much next time. It's bad for your health. When she didn't hear me mention what had happened the previous night, she felt a little disappointed, but didn't think much of it. Instead, she pointed to the dining table and said, "Sit down first. Breakfast will be ready soon." I obediently sat down at the table. There wasn't the slightest abnormality in my expression. In the same tone as before, I chatted with Lu Wanxing. I asked, "Who did you go drinking with last night? How did they bring you home and then just leave you there?" Hearing this, Lu Wanxin regretted not calling Wanxin afterward to find out what had happened. No, it was just Lu Wanxing. Did you see her last night? I shook my head and asked, puzzled. No, when I came yesterday, you were alone. Lu Wanxing frowned, trying to recall the previous day's memories. I continued from across the table. I thought something had happened. Getting a call from you in the middle of the night scared me. Lu Wanxing's heart warmed, and she was excited as well. In other words, she had called Gu Shai herself the previous night, and he had come as soon as he heard. One said a few more words, then stopped mentioning the previous night. I also didn't mention why I had ended up lying beside her. I ate breakfast quietly, while replying to the messages I hadn't answered yesterday. Lu Wanxing walked over and placed the warmed milk in front of me. Just then, she happened to see that the name on my chat screen was Siyao. Lu Wanxing's good mood vanished at once. She sat across from me, watching me eat while replying to messages. Unable to resist, she asked, "Are you really getting married?" I paused. Lu Wanxing immediately sensed that something was wrong. She hurriedly explained a few things to defend herself. "It's not that I think it's bad. I just think it's a little too soon. Do your parents know about her relationship with Yichen?" I shook my head. Lu Wanxing sighed. "Then you need to talk to her. Tell her not to contact Yichen anymore." I looked up at Lu Wanxing. My eyes were filled with complicated emotions. After a long silence, I finally spoke. She promised me. She said she would cut ties with Yichen. Lu Wanxing was speechless. She wanted to say that a woman's words shouldn't be completely trusted, but was afraid of hurting me. I lowered my head, then slowly spoke after a while. "To be honest, even I don't know whether I should marry her." Lu Wanxing's eyes lit up. She looked up at me. I sighed. What she did is very difficult for me to accept. She says she did it because she loves me. But if someone really loves someone else, how could they do something like that? I feel like I no longer trust Siyao. But after 7 years together, I can't completely let go either. Wanxing, I'm torn. Lu Wanxing advised me without revealing her thoughts. If you're hesitating, why not postpone the wedding for now? See how she behaves, then decide. I shook my head and said, "The elders have already set everything. If I suggest postponing it at this point, they'll definitely be disappointed." Lu Wanxing lowered her head to hide the disappointment in her eyes. I continued, however, "I've decided to give her and our relationship one more chance. If she disappoints me again, I won't forgive her again." Hearing this, Lu Wanxing lowered her head and looked at the glass of milk in front of her. A dark glint flashed through her eyes. After leaving Lu Wanxing's apartment, I started preparing my own art exhibition again. The exhibits were nearly ready. I had 42 of my own paintings, along with more than 10 famous works. Several were so valuable that they were the sort of paintings you only ever saw in the news. They had been painted by Siyao and Wanning. I accepted them without hesitation. Then I hired plenty of bodyguards to guard them. Before the exhibition opened, I met with Wanning a few more times, under the pretext of asking her for advice about hosting the exhibition and entertaining guests. I flirted with her several times, although I didn't think Wanning would be like Lu Wanxing and drink herself into a stupor. I could also sense that the time was about right. With one more push, I would get another chance. So, amid those busy days, I opened the exhibition. Some people had been drawn by my reputation, others by the famous paintings, and still others had heard that Wanning, Siyao, and the others would be attending. As a result, the exhibition was completely booked. There were still many people waiting at the entrance for others to leave, so they could enter as replacements. I wore formal attire that was elegant and carried an air of nobility. As the host, I entertained the guest while using the opportunity to meet people who genuinely understood art. I was extremely busy at the exhibition. When Siyao arrived, she brought a bouquet of flowers and a gift. Congratulations. Your exhibition is a great success. You're one step closer to your dream. Siyao wore a gentle smile as she handed me the flowers and gift. I accepted them, then handed the flowers to a staff member nearby and asked her to put them away. Then I looked up at Siyao. Thank you. Of course, I know. The original owner's dream was to become a renowned painter and hold exhibitions around the world so that more people who like my paintings could see them. After Siyao arrived, she stayed by my side. Although many people in the industry knew that Siyao and I were about to marry, many people who cared only about art, along with the media, did not. And so, the scene of a seemingly perfect couple was captured on camera. When Wanning arrived, this was exactly the scene she saw. Wanning stood there holding an exquisite gift box. She suddenly remembered that her brother had called her a few days earlier to tell her that his niece was getting married. Wanning's smile stiffened slightly. In the end, she walked over with a cold expression. The assistant had initially thought that coming to the exhibition with her boss was simply a sudden whim, but her boss had bought both flowers and a gift, which surprised the assistant somewhat. But the moment she saw Mr. Gu's name on the exhibition sign, the assistant was no longer surprised. Seeing her boss walk toward Mr. Gu, the assistant followed her. As soon as they drew near, the assistant noticed something was wrong. This woman standing beside Mr. Gu, wasn't she the boss's niece? Why did this niece seem so close to Mr. Gu? Just as the assistant was surprised and confused, the younger niece spoke. Annie, what are you doing here? Siyao was somewhat surprised to see Wanning. Wanning was only a few years older than her, so they had been quite close when they were young. But later, because Wanning was so outstanding, Siyao was always overshadowed by her, and over time, their relationship grew distant. Wanning nodded and stared at me. A trace of surprise flashed through my eyes. It seemed I hadn't known she was Siyao's aunt. Now that I knew, what would she do? As I wondered this, Wanning held out the gift box in her hand. Congratulations. When I saw the beautiful gift box, I raised my brows in surprise, and then my eyes filled with delight. Seeing my reaction, Wanning felt a little less heavy-hearted. I hope your exhibition is a success. I tilted my head and smiled at Wanning. Siyao, standing nearby, frowned at the sight. Her gaze moved between the two of us. Annie, do you two know each other? Wanning answered tersely. My expression did not change, and I kept a smile on my face. His gaze toward Wanning held a hint of cloying fondness. Wanning met my gaze, and her dark expression softened somewhat. The corners of her lips lifted slightly as well. But when she saw Siyao nearby, her lips flattened again. Siyao looked at me in surprise, questions in her eyes, but I didn't look at her, so I didn't see her confusion and paid no attention to it. Siyao received no response and felt a little disappointed, though she didn't show it. Wanning glanced at the exhibits around her and spoke as though casually. Show me around. I nodded and replied, sure, this way. I pointed to the left and prepared to walk in that direction. I turned back and said something to Siyao. You can look around on your own. Wanning didn't even glance at Siyao and followed me forward. As I walked, I explained the origins of each exhibit to Wanning, along with the stories behind them. When we reached the center of the exhibition hall, Wanning stopped. She turned her head toward the center of the hall, where quite a few people were gathered around a painting. It was the starry sky I had completed at the resort that day. I saw her stop and look at me in confusion. When I saw Wanning walk toward the painting, I curled my lips into a slight smile and waited where I stood for her to approach. She finally saw the description beside the painting, then turned to look at me. I was standing where I was, smiling at her. At that moment, it seemed as though only the two of us remained in the world. We understood each other's feelings, as if we were perfectly suited to complete each other. I was somewhat surprised to see Wanning stride toward me. She took my hand, leaned close to my ear, and asked, where is the lounge? After I pointed in a direction, she pulled me away. When we reached the lounge, Wanning wrapped her arms tightly around my waist, pulling us close. She asked, does that painting mean what I think it does? I leaned back against the door and looked down into Wanning's eyes. Hearing this, I curled my lips into a slight smile and asked, what do you think it means? Seeing the teasing in my eyes, Wanning broke into a grin and asked, you did that on purpose? I don't know what you're talking about. Wanning tilted her head slightly, leaned closer, and said, you'll find out soon enough. With that, she kissed me. I was about to speak, but she sealed my lips. I wore an astonished expression and was about to push her away, but she held me even tighter. The lounge was charged with a heady, intimate tension. Outside, guests at the exhibition toasted and mingled while things were heating up in the lounge. When Siyao watched me leave with her aunt and frowned slightly, she took a step forward, wanting to follow us, but someone put an arm around her shoulder. When she turned around, she saw Lu Wanxin and Wen Wanxin. What brings you here? Wen Wanxin frowned. What do you mean by that? Shiye is holding an art exhibition, so of course we had to come and show our support. I heard there will be an auction later as well. When Siyao nodded, I plan to bid on a few paintings and donate the proceeds to impoverished children in mountainous areas to help fund their education. When Wanxin nodded, that's a great idea. I'll bid on one and take it home too. Lu Wanxin's gaze continued to sweep across the exhibition hall, and she paid no attention to their conversation. Only after realizing she couldn't see me did she turn to Wen Siyao. Where's Shiye? When Siyao frowned at the mention of him, he went that way with my aunt. Lu Wanxin frowned. Your aunt. When Wanxin was also somewhat surprised. You mean Wanning? When Siyao nodded, she then voiced her doubts. I don't know how Shiye came to know my aunt. Lu Wanxin didn't understand either. When Wanxin was the first to figure it out, isn't it obvious? It must be because of the investment. Both women turned to look at her. Seeing this scene, when Wanxin inexplicably felt a little guilty, she rubbed her nose, unable to understand why she felt guilty. It was Lu Wanxin, not her, who liked Shiye. So, why was she feeling guilty? In contrast, Lu Wanxin showed no reaction at all, seeing the two of them waiting for her to explain. When Wanxin suppressed her guilt and said, I had already heard about it. The investors in Shiye's art exhibition are all Wanning's business partners. And those paintings, when Wanxin pointed to the paintings surrounded by onlookers, aren't those the ones Wanning bought at the previous auction? For them to be displayed here, Shiye must have asked her. Given your relationship, Wanning couldn't possibly refuse to help. So it was only natural for Shiye to give her special treatment. After all, she was the one bankrolling the exhibition. When the auction in the latter half began, I had already parted ways with Wanning. I went on stage and said a few words, then left the host to conduct the auction. Almost all the paintings sold for good prices. I had contacted a charity organization long ago and donated the money on the spot. This immediately elevated the exhibition's profile. For various reasons, the media also showered me with praise, putting me on the trending list. It attracted plenty of discussion and affection from fans. One thing worth mentioning was that the Starry Sky painting titled Autumn Dream was bought by Wanning for a high price. During the bidding, when Siyao also took a liking to the painting and raised her bid several times, she even privately messaged her aunt, asking her to let her have it. Unfortunately, how could Wanning let a painting bearing her own name be bought by someone else? I wasn't surprised by the result at all. After all, Wanning was simply that kind of self-centered and possessive person. After the exhibition ended, I had just returned home when I received a message from Wanning. Break off your engagement with Wen Siyao. I didn't reply. The real bombshell is still to come. What does this little bit of possessiveness matter? What I want isn't so simple. Aunt Gu still doesn't know about it. After sending me the message, Wanning was filled with anticipation. After waiting a long time without receiving a reply, Wanning frowned, then thought of something. He had been busy with the exhibition for several days, so he must be exhausted. He might even be asleep right now. So she didn't think much of it. Once she had figured it out, Wanning began working. It wasn't until she had finished all the work at hand that Wanning came back to it and realized several days had already passed. I still hadn't replied to her. In the blink of an eye, it was already mid-June. Soon, the day when Siyao and I were to be married would arrive. Wanning looked at the message she had sent earlier, saw that it had gone unanswered, and frowned. A few days earlier, she had made time to return home and happened to run into her older brother. He showed no sign of being troubled by the prospect of calling off the engagement, and instead his face was glowing with the happiness of marrying off his daughter. The pencil in Wanning's hand snapped. She remembered what her brother had said when she left. Your niece is getting married, and you're still not going to hurry up and find someone. I spotted a few eligible young men at a banquet recently. They're quite promising. I'll show you their photos. Wanning narrowed her eyes at the floor-to-ceiling window in the distance. So, Shiye hadn't broken off the engagement at all. Not only had he not broken it off, he was getting married soon. At that thought, Wanning's expression darkened. Then what did everything between them mean? Wanning turned her head toward the painting hanging in his office and began to reminisce about every little moment she had shared with Shiye. Could it be that she had been imagining things all along? When the assistant knocked and came in, she even found herself breathing more softly. The boss had been in a terrible mood lately, making her afraid to say too much. Could she have had a fight with Mr. Gu? But when the boss returned from Mr. Gu's art exhibition that day, she had clearly been radiant, as if basking in a spring breeze. It had only been a short while. So, how had she become so utterly dejected? The assistant placed the invitation on the boss's desk. Boss, this invitation was sent by your brother. He said he was out nearby and wouldn't come up. Wanning looked at the invitation on the desk. A single happiness character sealed the flap. Wanning guessed what it was, but felt that it was impossible. She opened the invitation with a grim expression. Sure enough,